Hey there, guys. We're going to start section 2 for chapter 12, and it's actually going to take us 3 days. Section 2 is on surface area of prisms and cylinders. We're going to spend 2 days on prisms and 1 day on cylinder. The reason why we're going to start 2 days on prisms is we have to talk about definition of prisms, we're going to practice drawing prisms, and then we need to learn about the different parts. So we are going to find the lateral areas and the surface areas of prisms. By the end of day 2, we should be able to do both of those. All right, so let's start off by talking about what is a prism. A prism is a polyhedron. And if you don't know what that word is, please look it up because I'm going to ask you about it when we get back to class. A polyhedron with 2 parallel and congruent bases. A prism is named by its bases. So if we look here, we have examples of some prisms. Now, we always think about a base as something that is sitting on. Well, in our prism, it's not always necessarily sitting on the base. So here in our first one, our prism's base is a triangle. So that's what it's named by, triangular prism. If we look at our rectangular prism, any of those rectangles could technically be called the base, not just the one it's sitting on. Looking at the cube, all of those sides are the same, so it doesn't matter which one you pick as the base. And then we have our pentagon in our prism here and our hexagon, and those two are those bases. So next, I'm going to ask you guys to go ahead and pause the video and draw these. And so all you're going to do is look back at these pictures here and draw them exactly as you see them. One thing I do want to point out, some of these have dotted lines in them. Those dotted lines are representing lines that are hidden, that we can't see. So if these were actually solid figures that we were holding in our hands, we wouldn't be able to see those. So those are dotted lines. So let's start off. I'll draw the triangular prism with you. So I'm going to start off with my base. And I'm going to draw 2 parallel lines to represent my sides. These 2 lines need to end at the same place. And then my base, I'm going to close off. Notice how that line should be parallel to the other one. Now let's draw those hidden lines. So if we draw down our back one, that's going to be parallel to the other sides. And my other edges for that base on the bottom. Go ahead, pause the video, and then when you guys come back, you should have all those drawn, and we'll start up. All right, so I hope your drawings went well. We'll take a look at those in class tomorrow. Now let's talk about different parts of a prism. First thing I want to talk about is, you see how there's 2 prisms. There's a right prism and an oblique prism. The right prism is actually making a right angle with its base. Oblique prism, if you see, is leaning, and here's how you're going to remember that. You have oblique muscles in your abdomen, and those are on the side. So those are your side muscles, so the oblique prism leans to the side. All right, so let's talk about base. Base, we mentioned when we described what a prism is. Your bases are 2 congruent and parallel sides. Then we have what's called a lateral face. These are kind of the sides that aren't the bases. So we're just going to say faces that are not bases. So let's just mark a few of these things. Up here, this would be considered a base because it's that end. And then we would call something like this one a lateral face. And this here would also be a lateral face. Actually, any of those on the side would be a lateral face. Next, we have lateral edge. Lateral edge is where the lateral faces connect. So lateral edges would be edges such as this one and up here in the front. Any of these that I'm marking with green would be a lateral edge. All right, then we have base edge. Obviously, our 2 bases don't connect to each other, so the base edge is where the lateral face connects to the base. where the lateral face connects to the base. So here would be some base edges. You also have some on the bottom. These are all base edges here. Then that brings us to the altitude. Another word for altitude is the height. The height is a perpendicular line segment to the opposite base. And I'm just going to use the symbol for perpendicular. To the opposite base. So if we look here, in our right prism, your altitude is just the side because it's perpendicular to the base. But in an oblique prism, your altitude is actually outside of your prism. Just like in chapter 11 when we were doing some triangles and some parallelogram areas, sometimes the altitude, the height was given to us outside of the figure. Same idea. All right, cross section. A cross section is a cutting that is either parallel or perpendicular to the base. So it's a cutting either parallel or perpendicular to the base. And we're actually going to investigate these more in class, and I'll actually take some Play-Doh and show you guys a 3D example of a cross section. All right, so let's talk about lateral area. Lateral area is the sum of the area of the lateral faces. The sum of the area of the lateral faces. So the picture to our left is a great representation of this. It's a triangular prism, so the bases are the two triangles, and the lateral faces are all these other edges here. And they have made a net for us, which we talked about in 12.1, so they unfolded everything. And right here, these are our lateral faces. So we're just going to find the area of each of those and add them together, and that's going to give us our lateral area. So we're going to represent lateral area by LA. So if we find the area of this first prism, or first rectangle here, area of a rectangle is base times height. So our base is A times our height, H. It says the sum, so we're going to add. Now we're going to do the middle one. Our base is B, and our height is H. And then lastly, we're going to do the small one on the end. Our base is C, and our height is H. Now you'll notice here there's an H in every single one, so we can actually factor that out. So our lateral area is H times A plus B plus C. Now A plus B plus C, if we look at that here, is actually the perimeter of our base. So we are going to say lateral area is perimeter times height. So jot down P is perimeter, or base perimeter, let's put that. And you can see that represented right over there. All right, so let's go ahead and answer some questions about this prism we see here. What type of prism is this? What are the bases? It's outlined in red. This is going to be a triangular base. All right, how many vertices does it have? We haven't really talked about vertices, so here's where we're going to talk about it. Vertices are the points where the edges all come together. So we want to think about that. We can think about that kind of like they're the corners. So I'm going to put little green dots by each of the vertices. So how many are there? There are 6. How many faces? So this is talking about all the faces, bases, and the lateral edges, or lateral faces. So we have 2 bases, and because it's a triangular prism, we have 3 lateral faces. So we have 5 total. And oh, that answers our next question for D. There are 3 lateral faces. Now it asks how many edges, and this is asking lateral edges and base edges. So take a moment, count them all up. I got 9. Did you get 9? Good. What is the shape of a cross section that is parallel to the bases? Like I said, we're going to talk about this more in class, so we'll do that one when we come back to class. And then G, find the lateral area of the prism. Remember, lateral area is perimeter of the base times the height. Perimeter of the base. Well, our base is the triangle, and we have 2 out of the 3 sides. It is a right angle, or a right triangle, so we're going to do Pythagorean theorem to find what our missing side is. Go ahead and do that. All right, I ended up with that missing side when I round it to be 7.8. Now I'm going to add all those 3 together, and I'm going to times it by the height. So 6 plus 5 plus 7.8 times the height. Now here's the tricky thing you need to remember. The height is the one that's not included in the base. Automatically, I'm sure you guys went right to this 5. Well, that's the height of the base, but not the height of the prism. The height of the prism, remember, needs to be perpendicular to the base. So I always like to remember it as it's the number not included in my base. So my height is going to be 7. Go ahead and do that out on your calculator. And we end up with 131.6. We're going to give ourselves a label of centimeters squared. All right, this next one here, oh, and that takes us on. I'm just going to show you guys this. I want you guys to do number 2 for us for tomorrow. We're going to start off with that. So, and then we'll begin our notes. Have a great day, guys.